So we have minutes, but I don't think we got them, Jamie.
I'm sorry, I did not finish them.
Okay, next meeting, please.
I will definitely have them.
Account balances. I'm assuming everybody has these. According to your estimate, which you gave us today, we have $1,505,440 available. And I see the projects that are ongoing. Does anybody have any questions on the balance and the projects as submitted? Did everybody get them? It was in the new shared folder. Did everybody get that email with the new shared folder, because we're on Google now? Yes, you got it. Okay. The balances are understandable. Okay. Thank you for doing that, Jamie. Do you have any, let me get to the agenda. Jamie, do you public speak? Anybody here to speak on any subject that's not part of the agenda? I can't see hands, so.
It doesn't look like there's anyone here for public speak.
It cut out on me again. Everybody hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
It goes out and comes right back. Okay, I'm going to start with any official stuff, Jamie, that you want to bring up before we get into the applications, etc.
I don't have anything off the top of my head. We do have the annual reporting to the state for the what the committee voted for appropriations in last year, and that's due to the state on September 15th. So I'll be working on that over the next couple weeks.
Okay, thank you. First item is Reservation Road. Jeff, you want to share your screen with us with the budget? Members of the committee, this was discussed at length at our last meeting, and since it was, I believe we could vote on it tonight if it's your pleasure. Jeff, are you here?
Yes. Yep, I'm here. Thank you, CPA members. Before I share my screen, I just wanted to say a couple quick words, and then I'm happy to share my screen. But as Dan said, I was before the CPA several months ago, and the group issued a letter of support that I used in a application to the land program, and what we're trying to do is the city is trying to acquire 5.5 acres on the top of Reservation Road. It's a set of parcels that are vulnerable to development. There was a petition signed by approximately 1,000 residents, and some number in addition to that, but about 1,000 Easthampton residents signed this petition. And so also it's highly recommended in our open space and recreation plan, which we updated last year, to pursue parcels sort of adjacent to Mount Tom. And so, we're trying really hard to act on that. A few issues that were unresolved when I was here before was the valuation for the property. So we were underway with an appraisal at that point, and it came back at a value for the land at $350,000, which at that time we understood that would be the potential valuation, which is those were the numbers that I was anticipating. So we have an appraisal which supports that. We also worked really hard to get an option agreement signed by the owner. So we have, the owners have signed it, and they're acknowledging that they are working with us for a conservation acquisition, and they are agreeing to the valuation. So those two items were kind of paramount for us to submit the land grant application, which happened on July 14th. And what I'm back here before the CPA for is a formal vote to allocate kind of the city's share of the land grant, which I'll pull it up in a minute, the budget. It's about $121,000. that the CPA would be contributing, and the land grant we're asking the land grant to cover $245,000 to cover the cost of the property plus some closing costs and some, we might need a survey and we need some baseline documentation through Kestrel Land Trust. So the total cost for the acreage is $367,000. So I think now is a good time to share my screen, but the cover letter really attempted to articulate that the structure of this is that we don't know if we're going to get this grant, but they want these votes in anticipation of that. So we're seeking the CPA vote now, and then, I'm going to work next week to put the CPA vote with a supplemental appropriation request for the rest of the money. So City Council will be asked to vote to fund the $245,000, none of which will get spent if we do not get the grant. So it's all to show the state that we have access to the funds, and the timeline is such that we have to do this now so that we're ready if we're awarded. It's a bit of a backwards process, but that's been the pattern for a couple of years. So I'm going to just share my screen. Here is the cover letter, which hopefully covers the relevant things I just discussed. The application form. So the requested amount is $121,588, and it's a little bit of an odd figure, but it factors in a couple of the due diligence items that the land grant does not cover legal costs. So I kind of think this number is still a little bit large. So the hope is that we'll spend even less than this, but this is the dollar amount that we're going to put forward to City Council as well. So as I said, it's broken into two general categories, which is the acquisition cost, which the value of the land is set at $350. The land grant covers 68%, which is $238,000. So the city's portion of that is $112, and that's what CPA will be contributing to that. Then the second kind of bucket of costs are closing costs and due diligence. So we're estimating, we can only estimate that at this point. And we think it's kind of high, but we're estimated at $17,000, which would include the potential for a survey, baseline documentation, recording fees, and then some legal expenses. And I'm optimistic that those numbers are high. We're not sure, but we wanted to project. We're not sure that we need a survey. So like that's a big item that we wanted to account for it, but we actually don't think it'll be necessary. The property owner is supposed to be transferring those documents to us if we're successful. So I think that's it. We did talk about this. It's an important project for us to try for. I will say that I don't know what we're going to do yet if we don't get the grant. But as my next item kind of shows, is we would be coming back to the CPA if something changes. But my hope is that we're not asking the city to pay for the full cost. Our goal and the pattern, even with past planners, has been to leverage the CPA money. So we're using some CPA money to get a larger amount from the state. So we're really trying to stick with that. So I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Jamie, would you please look for raised hands, because I don't know what's going on with my Zoom. This is typical. So the biggest thing to understand, members, is that we don't spend any money unless the grant has been given to us. But this property is something we have been wanting to preserve for years, and I believe this is a worthy project. Questions for Jeff? Anybody have their hands up? Jamie?
No one has their hands up, so I'll just say if people do have questions, maybe you can just unmute yourselves. Since
we voted to approve, to write a letter of support for this, with an amount listed. I think it was under 150,000, and this is certainly under that. I feel we can approve this tonight. Is the committee okay with a motion to approve this tonight?
Yes.
Does anybody object? Can I have a motion, Jay, since you're good at them?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve 121,588 for the Reservation Road acquisition.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Joe. Your first action as a committee member. By the way, welcome, Joe.
I like it.
We have a motion on the floor for the Reservation Road acquisition. Do we have any further discussion? Any hands, any comments? Hearing none. Jamie, could you do a roll call, please?
Yep. Dan,
Yes.
Greg, absent. Jay,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and Andy is also absent. So the motion passes 7 in favor, none against, with 2 absent.
Okay, I'm hoping Jeff and Jamie, you can get this appropriation into the packet for next week so we can get the ball rolling on the council process.
Yes, Jeff and I have discussed that, and we'll be getting it into the city council packet for next week.
Going in order, Jeff, you're still up on the Burkowski property. I believe this is a simple request where you're going to reallocate funds. I don't believe it has to go back to the council because it's still the same project, but you have to report to us when you're making a change. Am I right on that, Jamie?
Yes, that's
Okay, so Jeff, why don't you explain your request to reallocate funds since we didn't get the grant for the Burkowski Trail?
Yep, thank you, and thanks for your vote on the other one. I'll be bringing some of our partners along for the city council meetings for that. So we have reps from Kestrel and Pascomic. They're our partners in the Reservation Road one. So this is a different discussion, but real quick, since like the 1970s, the city had been acquiring land between Hendrick Street and 141. So really kind of that bottom slope of Mount Tom. And kind of as I'm learning more and more, I mean, it's pretty amazing that the city has protected about 180 acres there over 3, 4, almost 5 decades. And in 2014, now I'm going to get my dates wrong because it's been flip-flopping in my mind, whether it's 2014 or 2015, there was a microburst that blew down a lot of trees on an existing trail system. And so I came to this group, we talked about a grant application through Mass Trails. We did not get it. We were asking for, the total project was about $170,000. A lot of it was permitting work to get us oriented with wetlands that are out there, wetland resources, and endangered species habitat. The CPA voted to contribute $35,400 towards that. And we made the application. We just learned in the beginning of July, actually it was the end of July, that we did not get awarded the grant. In the cover letter, they had $3.5 million to spend, and they got $11 million worth of project requests. And so it's just woefully inadequate. And one of the concerns I think I had, and I think others had all along, is that we had to do a lot of the wetland research, and we still have to navigate a process with the Endangered Species Division before we can actually do tree removal. And so I kind of think that was a little bit of an Achilles heel with the project, but we tried anyway. So with the $35,000, there was a little bit of contingency built in. So I did, we did use $3,000 already to have our consultant, who's GZA. They went out and they mapped the property, they walked the trails and generated a map, and they kind of looked at the habitat, just in a general sense. And at that valuation for $3,000, their work got us a meeting with Natural Heritage. So they're the endangered species folks. And that was useful for us because it was the first time we met with them about the project. And they were generally supportive, but very cautious to really say much until we do more. So that's what I'm hoping to ask this committee now, is to take of the 35,000, well, it's like 31,000 we have left, to spend $9,000 to take the next step, which is for GZA to do additional habitat mapping, look at the trail routes more closely, look at where tree removal is, and then go back to Natural Heritage through a request process. And our goal really is that we want to know if Natural Heritage is going to consider this project kind of minor, or a worst case scenario is that our project would be considered a taking of habitat. And if we're doing due diligence, so there is a risk that we would be spending this money. We might find out the worst case scenario that it is a habitat taking, in which case we probably will not pursue resurrecting these trails. We did make the case that these were existing trails that are being restored, and they were understanding that, but we really need to provide this data to them. So the long-winded is to spend the $9,000. We think it'll get us to this point where we can understand if Natural Heritage would approve the project. And at that point, then I think we are in a better position next cycle to apply for that same grant. And I think at that point, we can take out all these questions and we can say that we have this approval, I'm going to put approval in air quotes. We have this understanding with Natural Heritage that we can do the project. And so my hope is the CPA amount then would be less and the grant will be less, but we'll have a clearer path to kind of do this project. So that's kind of my summary there. And there's a cover letter on that to that effect.
Jeff, do you have any sense of whether this habitat study will work in our favor? Do you have any idea? I mean, are you optimistic, or is this like a roll of the dice? As a group, the small group that met with Natural Heritage felt optimistic with the way they were talking to us. But the idea is they kept saying, well, we don't know what exactly you're talking about yet. And we really need to know what you're talking about. So the idea is that with this additional money with GZA, we can really narrow down the scope and really pinpoint these areas. We can identify if we're in endangered species habitat and to kind of describe the extent to which we might be disturbing it. So we feel optimistic, but we need to take this step to even know. Otherwise, we will kind of languish in this cycle where we won't get anywhere. So it's due diligence. It's money that we kind of need to spend to continue to try to resurrect the trails. So if we spend 4,000, we're going to risk 9,000. It's a good risk, but it is something that the committee needs to understand. May end up where we're not able to do the project because this would be in the way. Once this is done and it's a positive, hopefully, report, then we apply for the grant again. Is that the process?
Yep. That's the idea. Yep.
Okay. Well, Jamie, can you see if any committee members? I see Jessica's hand up. Go ahead, Jess.
So I guess my question to Jeff is, are you actually applying for a conservation management permit in order to get the letter that says it's a no take, or is this just an assessment, and is this just a conversation, or are you filing a permit with NHESB?
That's a good question. If I can fiddle, I included the scope that GZA provided us. I need to look at that. I don't know.
And the reason I'm asking is there's permit application fees that would be associated with the CMP, and I want to make sure that that if you need funds for that, and I don't know how it would be calculated in terms of what that fee is, and maybe you're exempt because you're a municipality, I don't know. I doubt it, but I just want to make sure that you've got that in your budget if that's part of it. Because it's one thing to do the assessment, it's another to go through the permitting process, and so.
Yep. I just pulled up the scope.
Right now, but just something to think about, I guess, is, well, so I guess you do need to think about it with the permit fee piece.
Jeff, were they asking for a permit, a request for a permit for anything, or were they just asking for information for what the site contains?
With a conservation management permit, often you're doing an assessment that is submitted to the state, and then they give you a letter that says that there's a no take and that there's no impact to environmental endangered species. So it seems, I guess to me, it seems like it's a lot of money and a lot of work to do an assessment and then like not file for the official permit if you're going to need that eventually to build the trails anyway. So.
Yeah, it does say, so I have the scope up. It says this change order. So we're doing it through a change order, which is just technical because we had a bigger scope with them. But this change order creates 2 new tasks and is intended to provide support to the city through the issuance of a determination letter from Natural Heritage, as well as to collect additional information in support of an NOI. It's a great question, Jess. To be perfectly honest, I don't know if we were going to do the actual permit, but the folks at GZA, Steve Ribberty, and the other Joe Rogers, felt like this next step would get us the clarity we need, at least to make a decision. So I can't say for sure whether we would actually be applying for the permit here, but they kind of told me that they felt comfortable that this would kind of take this much of a step to figure out where we go.
I think it would be good for you to know whether you can shingle whatever work is being done into a permit application if you need it, and that there's not additional work that would need to be done, that it's like a really easy shingle to just take the next step to file the permit if you need it. I guess would be my only.
That I have clarity on. That's a great terminology. I have not heard that one yet. But yes, everything that we're doing would be building towards that. I just don't know if we get to that. This is not an arduous process for me. So if we get to that point and I need to come back for a little bit more, I'm happy to do that and keep the CPA committee in the loop.
I wonder, this is all part of this project. You're telling us you need to use the 9,000 to continue your effort to get the grant. And if you need to spend a little more because of the permitting process Jessica is mentioning, why isn't it simply part of this project? Why do we have to keep reapproving it? In other words, if you get a positive outcome from the GZA or whatever the name is thing, and you need to move on to, as Jessica said, shingling with the permitting process, and there's a little more money, it's all part of the grant application process. I'm feeling like I'd let you do that. I think we're kind of, and somebody enlighten me, we're kind of making this a little too bureaucratic. In other words, if you need to spend a little more money after you get a positive to do the permitting, you still have money in the bank from the original CPA thing. And you're informing us tonight, you're informing us, and we're hopefully approving it. Scott has his hand up. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I guess what it might come down to is, assuming that goes well, in reapplying, Jeff, do you anticipate, because this money is spent on something that wasn't initially in there, do you anticipate needing to come back to the committee for additional money? And I think that's where, Dan, it would make sense to approve something now so that later on, if we need to do that, that's recognized.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about $1,000 or something else. I'm not, major money, of course you have to come back, but.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate, I'm willing to come back. I think the difference for me, and it's like related to our land grant discussion that we just had, is that we are now spending money that we may not be able to pursue the grant. And so I just wanted to be really open with the committee that this is really due diligence that like I'm being told repeatedly that we kind of need to take this step there's a risk, and I'm just trying to be honest with the committee that as of right now, like, so we'll spend this $9,000 plus the 3,600. So we're invested a little over $12,000. And I just want to be really careful and I just want to be mindful with the group. But I think to Scott's point, right now it's not perfectly equal, but if we do spend $12,000, that's $12,000 less that we're asking the grant for the Mass Trails to do. So we're close, but we're trying, like, we are like pulling down the cost of the project by doing this. But it's not a perfect equal equation. So.
And I just realized the grant cycle, I mean, we just went through that, we were denied. You got to go through the whole thing again anyway, and that's what, next year?
Yeah, it was like February, I think it was.
So, okay, you come back to us if you need more money, but once you get this positive thing, so I think the 9,000 should be sufficient then.
All right, I'm fine with that. It works. I just wanted to keep the committee involved, really.
Well, committee, I'd like a motion to approve the reallocation of these funds for $9,000 unless anybody else has questions.
Well, Jeff, in your letter, you had $10,000 in that.
Oh, did you?
What are you going to do with the other $1,000?
Pay for a permit fee.
We probably could. I guess I apologize because I think in the GZA quote, the change order, this next step they've estimated at 9,000. I think that would be great if the committee wants to give me that allowance for 1,000. If we could squeak out, like, if GZA says there's something else they need to do, and if it's within that would be. I mean, I think that would be a good little bit of flexibility. I don't want to have up to the full 35, but
yeah, okay.
So we make the motion for 10,000. That's okay.
I'll make a motion to approve 10,000 for GZA to do resource mapping.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to reallocate the funds already approved by the City Council and the CPA for the Borkowski Trail project for $10,000. Do we have any further discussion? Jamie?
So Andy did join us. Start with him.
Sorry.
Andy.
Aye.
Dan.
Yes.
Greg is absent. Jay.
Aye.
Jessica.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Harry.
Aye.
And Scott.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 8 in favor with 1 absent.
So I don't believe this has to go before the City Council because these funds are within the same project. We're not moving them to a new project.
Right.
I may, Jeff, ask you to write a letter of informing the council of the CPA's decision and why you're doing it, just so they know.
I'm sorry, Dan. So will you say that again?
We don't need a formal appropriation order or anything, but just informing the council of this change, of this reallocation approved by the CPA.
Okay, so for informational purposes, is that what?
Informational purposes.
Yeah. Okay.
The CPA has approved these funds that were originally allocated, and we didn't get, in order to try to get the grant again next year, something.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. I'm going to stick around just to hear this next conversation, but I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
City space. Burns, you're up.
Hello,
How are you?
members of the CPA. Thank you for reviewing our request for repurposing funds for a number of projects that we have. Like so many other organizations and businesses during this time, we have experienced some unusual happenings within the Old Town Hall that have required us to pull from our reserves to maintain the Old Town Hall, some historic preservation aspects, as well as to bringing it up to code for the first floor. So we're seeking funding for $13,219 from earmarked 2017 project that has a remainder of $51,028, and City Space is looking to match those funds of historic repairs and restorations. If you'd like, I can share my screen to sort of go through some of the work that we've done. Yes?
Do we need that committee? I've read it. I don't need it, but it's up to the committee. Does anybody need to see? Would you like to see this stuff? I don't. Burns, so you're asking for $13,000 to be reallocated. Am I correct in that figure?
That's correct. And we clearly laid out in our letter to you about where those funds are going. One is for architectural fees for the redesign of the first floor. We found that the exterior doors, the exit doors into the back space that was formerly known as Flywheel Arts Collective, that they need to be essentially, they have a step and a platform down, and they need to be, that platform needs to come up and be level. And we have to add a stair, we're adding a bollard. We also have to add, in response to the fire captain's look at our first floor space, as well as the building inspector, a fireproof door that's right after the entryway from those exit doors.
Most of this is code compliance.
Exactly.
So what, refresh my memory, the 51,000, what was it originally requested for?
Yeah, so it was from a match grant or a request from the MCC for the second floor space for bidding, construction, and administration that required a one-to-one match. We didn't receive the full funding from the MCC for the we did for the design, development, and the construction drawings, but not for the bidding and the administration, construction administration. So we will have to do that as part of the second floor project. However, we were not putting these funds into the amount that the CPA is already committed, the $3 million that the CPA is committed to the project. So this was, these funds were here. And as we look towards opening the second floor of the Old Town Hall, which I'll talk a little bit later after this and tell you where we are with that, that we really need to get this first floor back up and running. And we need to keep maintaining the Old Town Hall and preserving its historic value. You know, it's a building from 1869 and it requires upkeep. And the way that our funding model works, the way our organization works, is that we are essentially a nonprofit, volunteer-run management entity that houses arts organizations and businesses on our first floor who help us to pay for the restoration, along with CPA funding, foundation funding, et cetera, to repair and restore all of the maintenance and upkeep of the Old Town Hall. In 2019, we took on a 44-year lease of the building that requires us to upkeep the entire building from inside to out.
Just so you know, because this is a reallocation of funds approved by City Council for the second floor to the first floor, we're going to have to go through a City Council reappropriation process. And I'm wondering, I was told by Jamie, this is reimbursement of funds you're spending already. So in other words, given a timeline, I'm hoping we can get this to the City Council for the September 1st packet. Then there's a meeting a week later at Finance to approve it. We'll have a public hearing in the second meeting in September, and that's when the funds will be available. Will that timing be okay for you?
Honestly, we're spending the funds to move forward with the project, and we're asking for your help to reimburse some of these and to move forward. Yes, and to move forward with some of the upcoming work that we're doing. We're looking to open the space in October. I understand we have a Delta variant on our hands, so that complicates things, but we are looking for alternative uses of the space so that, you know, for smaller capacity or for hybrid use, getting people in to use the space for live streaming if that's necessary, but otherwise using safety measures and using the space as many other businesses and organizations are doing right now.
Do we have any questions from the committee? I don't see any hands. Jamie, do you see any hands? Do you have the phone? Okay, I think we're all set. So somebody make a motion. I think it's 13,000 or so. I don't have it in front of me what the actual amount is.
$13,219.
$219. Can someone make a motion to approve that reallocation of funds?
I'll make the motion to approve $13,219 to be reallocated for the items as discussed.
I'll second it.
Okay, so this is a reallocation of funds, $13,219 from the second floor project to first floor Old Town Hall code compliance project. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Jamie?
Dan,
Yes.
Aye.
Greg,
Greg isn't here.
I'm sorry, not here. Andy said aye. I heard that. Jay,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
and Scott.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes 8 in favor with 1 member absent.
So Jamie, can you get this to the packet for next Thursday? Along with
Yeah, so a clarification. So typically, I would submit a supplemental appropriation request. Would this just be a memo because the money's already been appropriated by council? It's just an update?
Still has to be approved, so whatever, maybe talk to Hadel, whatever way you need to do it. It's not a new appropriation, you're correct. So whatever works, but it has to be, the council approved the funds originally for the second floor. So we have to get the council to allow the movement. A memo may be sufficient, but
Okay,
it opens up, the money has to go to a new project account, does it not? Account has to be set up for it, so.
I guess I assumed this was sort of like a interdepartmental transfer where it's just
Interdepartmental, okay, you could call it
it's
that.
just allocated from this fund and then the authority to use it for. We're just basically modifying the scope of
I think interdepartmental is a great term. Just get confirmation from Hadel about it so that we can get it to the council, so they understand it's within the department in a sense, the project. So, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll do my best. I'm on vacation next week, so I'll try to get a memo out tomorrow.
Oh, okay. We got a lot done. Jeff, you're still on. You'll handle the other appropriations since Jamie's away. Otherwise, there'll be a delay.
No, Jeff and I already talked about this.
We have a plan.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, moving on. Burns, you want to update us about the second floor project, please?
Sure. Do you mind if I share my screen for this one?
Sure. You make her a co-host, Jamie?
I can share.
Are you already a co-host? I don't know. Okay.
Okay. So just bear with me. This is, I'm going to share about 6 minutes of what we've been doing in the last year. I think we updated you last year. I think it's been about a year that we updated you on the transformation campaign of the Old Town Hall. And, like I said, we were like many organizations trying to anticipate the future of when and how the world would reopen and recover. And, we're all palm readers at this time. We had about 280 gifts from individuals. We had raised $3.9 million. That's including commitments from the CPA. And we had suspended rents from our tenants. We've had many changes happen in the past year and successes, I'd like to say. And we now have over 25 volunteers, a capital campaign manager, and all are dedicated to preserving the Old Town Hall and the future of it to enliven the space for performance, experiencing art, and community gatherings. So this is just sort of where we are with the project that we've been working on in the past year. We haven't stopped. We've kept the campaign active in the past year. Through the fall and the winter, we've been applying to state, federal grants as well as foundations, and we've received $35,000 from the Beverage Foundation. We have $800,000 in requests that we will hear from by November. So fingers crossed on those. And we continue to add new grants and funding requests to our roster, especially from small foundations that support this region and like organizations as City Space. We have a business campaign going. In January, we kicked off our business campaign with a lead gift from Bank ESB of $50,000 with an additional pledge of $100,000 that will be donated when we meet our capital campaign goal. We have since then received donations from Florence Bank, Fink and Paris, Harbor One, Applied Mortgage, anonymous donors, and with many others who we hope to be solidifying commitments from soon. We've raised over $60,000 for that campaign, making a total of $210,000 in commitments, and will continue our outreach throughout the Western Massachusetts business community. We have a Take a Seat campaign, a chair campaign, and we have a team of folks that are really dedicated to reaching out to donors who are interested in commemorating a loved one or an event. We even have cats and dogs, or an idea on a plaque affixed to the back of their chair that will live in the second floor of the Old Town Hall. The $500 donation can be paid at once or over time. When the 350 chairs are all sold, it'll garner $175,000 for the campaign. Yesterday, we learned of 10 additional chairs being purchased, making for a total of 73 chairs we have sold. The team who is focused on this is sending out letters and connecting with more potential donors. This is really an affordable yet meaningful way for folks in our community to invest in the Old Town Hall. Historic tax credits, we're eligible for up to $700,000 in historic state tax credits, and we continue to submit applications. We're waiting to hear back from one application right now, as well as applying for our next application. Each quarterly application yields about $150,000. Actually, it yields $150,000, not about. And City Space has been awarded $450,000 in tax credits. Thanks to the leadership of Representative Carey and Senator Vilas, $750,000 for City Space was allocated in the state bond bill for projects that stimulate economic development and create jobs across Massachusetts. The bill has been approved, but it's not yet funded, and so therefore our advocacy for that bond bill continues. City Space will have a presence at upcoming events. We're going live, and we're really excited to be present within the community during this time. We're going to be at Mill Pond Live. We'll be at several Easthampton farmers markets, and we will be giving tours in person at Old Town Hall. We are hosting small gatherings at houses throughout the region, inside and out, to talk to folks about the project, as well as planning major donor events. Next year, we intend to host our second Old Town Hall Ball, and we hope that will be near the completion of the campaign. So since the shutdown in 2020, City Space has reopened its doors, and our tenants are paying 100% rent. Thousands of people viewed the Old Town Hall online through our virtual tour that included a new 360-degree renderings of the second floor created by Kuhn Riddle Architects. We did virtual programming throughout the winter that connected artists of all kinds and businesses to the Old Town Hall. We built sponsorships, built connections with City Space, new businesses in the area, as well as old businesses. We paid artists, we promoted those business sponsorships, and some of the spinoff fundraisers that happened that were really sweet were literally Small Oven Bakery and Abandoned Building Brewery created a fundraiser where they sold cupcakes and they made the cupcakes together. Galaxy sold, or they gave away Apollo plates made by Kaleidoscope Pottery. And overall, we made $12,000 on events for the second floor, plus over $50,000 in subsequent donations to the capital campaign because of City Space Presents. So, as you know, we lost a tenant on the first floor, and City Space has established that operations and programming plans created for the future second floor performance space can be adapted and implemented now in the vacated first floor space. Like I said, we're looking to opening up this October, and I really firmly believe that this will help with the viability of the organization and thinking long-term of the second floor and how we will get that second floor built happens because of this first floor. We're looking to staffing the space sooner than later. We're actually submitting a grant this week for a part-time position for 2 years to staff this first floor space that would eventually evolve into the second floor space. So we're kind of taking those plans that we've developed for the second floor and starting them a little bit early on the first floor. Our plans continue to be reviewed by a new artist advisory committee that's made up of 9 members of the community, of artists from different communities throughout the region, as well as we had 70 survey respondents that reviewed the feasibility of the plan and provided their feedback. You know, I know this isn't the Economic Development Committee, but we now have 7 empty storefronts in less than a mile radius in the Main Street Historic District. Easthampton's really fared well during this pandemic, but we're seeing some loss on the Main Street area. So I think this project will make a big difference to the long-term sustainability and the accessibility to space within this area and Easthampton. So where are we financially? Like the rest of the world, we've had to adjust our expectations due to the pandemic. We launched the capital campaign in 2019. We have reached a total of $4.2 million for the Old Town Hall, with over 600 gifts from more than over 325 donors. Obviously, the CPA is a significant part of this project, and we can't thank you enough for allocating funds for the Old Town Hall. Our planned funding model has many different sources, and you're probably familiar with this, or I hope you are, with this is our go-to for where we are getting our funds for this project. It hasn't changed since we changed the date for the construction to begin in 2023. So we're still looking to ending the capital campaign. We're optimistic at the end of 2022. We have a lot of balls in the air right now, and we're looking for positive results from those many pieces of the puzzle. So I'm happy to take questions if you have any.
Well, I just want to say that I am absolutely impressed with the work you and your team are doing, Burns. This project wouldn't be anywhere without the people on your committee and you yourself. So it is dear to my heart. I hope at some point we can get this done in the near future. Do committee members have any questions? Well, I do believe you're preaching to the converted there, Burns, but thank you. And we appreciate the update. We will always need it. If any of your fellow committee members wanted to say anything also, of course, but Jamie, I can't see hands, so.
Scott, you have something?
Scott had a question.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Burns. It's awesome to hear an update and see the progress that's been made. I just wanted to, obviously, COVID is hanging over all this, and I wanted to get a sense, just if you could tell a little more about sort of how that's like, has there been planning on how has that impacted plans beyond? I mean, the first, like the flywheel leaving the first flag, and that I think could be a really cool opportunity. I look at that. I was struck by one of the pictures, and you just see everybody in a packed room, and I'm like, who knows when that's going to be? If you could just say like a little more about like how that's impacting discussions, I'd love to hear that.
Sure. Yeah. I really hate to be like everybody else, but I really didn't see this coming, and this pandemic. And, I think we didn't see the loss of Flywheel, but it's kind of like, turning lemons into lemonade and thinking about the second floor and how those two spaces will work together in the future. It seems like a positive step forward. As we've been developing all these plans. It's really interesting. We're applying for an NEA grant right now, and they asked us if we had an emergency plan. And I'm like, we have a strategic plan. We have a business plan. We don't have an emergency plan yet. We need an emergency plan. And, I think that it's something that we're talking about all the time. Okay, what's our alternative use for these spaces? And if you can't have, the capacity in the space, what else can you do in this space? You can create hybrid performances. You can create smaller capacity, intimate, meaningful performances with people that and the cost will fluctuate with that potentially. Creating a good hybrid performance is hard. I think creating really fun and exciting live stream performances is difficult, but if we're in the position where we are all stuck at home and that's what we have, then we figure out a way to do it. And I think that it's, as far as the, Mike, I don't know if you want to step in here at any point, but being part of the building team. But as far as the airflow within the building, we've talked to our architects, Coombe Riddle architects, and they were like, no, it's the airflow will be better with what we have put into place than what it is now. It'll be suitable post-COVID. So, we were already going in the right direction. So, I think that continuing to move in that direction is where we want to be.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything from the city space or any questions from the committee? Hearing none. Thank you, Burns. Thank you, committee members.
Thank you.
Hopefully, maybe once you get your grant from the state and they release those funds, you can come back to us with a new report.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm happy to do so.
Thank you very much. What's left on our agenda? I believe historic deed restriction. Jamie, can you update on that? I don't know. Since Nora has resigned, whether we should proceed with this until they have a new member. But you had some information, did you not?
Yeah, so I started the process and generated a good bit of information, and then I was going to reach out to Nora and the rest of the library board to invite them to this meeting to have discussions with the committee. And then I learned about Nora's resignation, and I thought it was best to wait for that to happen until they have a new executive director, and that they've had a little bit of time to get a feel for the situation, what's going on in the building. But obviously, if the committee thinks differently and wants to pursue this more rapidly, the library board can still function and make decisions without the executive director, and I can reach out to them for the September meeting or at a later point in time. But I'm happy to just.
Did you say you gave the library board the information on it? They have that information?
I did not, because at the time, by the time I had sort of gotten to that point, it was clear that Nora was leaving, and it seemed like they would be having other concerns. And I wanted to check in with the CPA committee to make sure that I was doing this in the right direction and that we're following the right way forward.
It's going to be ultimately a board decision, and the new member, in my mind, the new executive director is going to be behind the eight ball. That person is not going to know where we are with this. So in my mind, I think the information you have, I saw some of it in the packet. Let's get it to the board, and then maybe you can have some communication with the board as to their questions on how to proceed. I think there's no rush in a sense unless they have some need for a new appropriation, because I believe we'd like this in place before we allocate more funds. How does that feel with the other committee members? We should at least get them to start the ball rolling on the board, the library board on the preservation. Anybody have any comment on that? I'd like to see it get going, because if they need an appropriation, I'd like to see that preservation at least started or in place. Anybody? John?
I concur fully. Spot on.
So let's get that information to them, Jamie, and tell them the information you provided us, make sure they have all the information, and you reach out to them to maybe meet with them, in the future in a couple of weeks, and see what they have to say. If you find it, and I'll leave this in your hands, Jamie, if you find it appropriate, why don't you let us know if you want it at the top of an agenda, because I don't want to wait too much longer. Okay.
I'll aim for the September meeting. It's pending the library board's ability to come to that meeting.
Just to update you, Joe McCoy, they've requested a number of CPA fund requests, one of them most recently for HVAC handling. Mm-hmm. And we are concerned because there were some comments made way back that the building might need to be sold to get their funding, their budget in place, and we are concerned about that any deed restriction be in place before it's sold, if that's what the board wanted to do. So Joe, I just wanted you to be aware that's what we're talking about here, that any future CPA funds may rest on whether there's a preservation in place.
That sounds good.
Okay, Joe, thanks.
Actually, I'm actually just noticing the next meeting is actually scheduled for September 16th, which is the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. So I won't actually be able to attend that meeting, but we can reschedule it. And I can
we do the 23rd?
I have another meeting that night at 6 p.m., the Housing Partnership. But I can put out a doodle poll, or
how about Tuesday, the 21st? Is that the right date? I don't have my calendar.
Yeah, that's the correct date.
Does anybody have objections to meeting next September because of Yom Kippur on Tuesday, the 21st?
No problem.
No, works for me.
Everybody's okay? Jamie, are you okay with the 21st?
Yep. And
So
I'll send out a confirmation email, so if anyone realizes.
Make sure Barbara knows, everybody knows that we had to move it because of Yom Kippur. Okay.
Is that the third Tuesday of the month?
That planning board?
Yes, it's the third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh,
If it's the third Tuesday, it'll be a planning board meeting.
Okay. So
Well, now we can't do Tuesday, and we can't do Wednesday because that's a city council meeting. How about Monday, the 20th? Anybody? Monday, the 20th?
Yeah, works
It
for me.
work.
I'm sorry, the planning people, well, I have to meet city council that week too, so there's going to be a couple meetings in 1 week. So. All right, the 20th, please.
Okay.
Everybody looking at their calendars, we're okay with the 20th?
Yep.
Yes.
I know for right now, anything can change.
Okay. And Jessica, I will reach out to Barbara to get you that document you need. Okay, thank you all. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Jamie.
all right, Andy,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Greg, not here, Jay,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a good evening and a good weekend.
Take
Good night,
care.
everyone.
Okay, take care.
Good night.